Welcome all to DeFi, Crypto, and Airdrops. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and I'd like to welcome Jake Call
How's it
and
going,
here to the
everyone?
show. Appreciate you being here, brother. Just wanted to, honestly, you're kind of one of the people that helped me get into DeFi. So I really enjoy you coming on the show. I'll be honest, it's been an interesting journey for me, especially kind of jumping in and with as knowledgeable as you are about DeFi and the kind of the level that you're at. It was kind of hard for me to get over the hump to to really start getting my head wrapped around to some of the more basic concepts. But with that, let me go ahead and just kind of show your socials real quick, just so people know where to find you.
Let's do it.
So this is his YouTube. It's just at Jake Call with a C, and he has a lot of really good content as far as and it's easy to digest. It's just kind of short lessons. So if you are curious about DeFi and you are interested on where to get started or just some of the key concepts, great place to go. Over here on X, it is at Jake A. Call. Luminary Assets is his company. And we'll get into it a little bit, but these are two of his tools that he's developed or bought. And one is crypto-correlation.com. A lot of really good calculators and tools there. We'll get into that. And then also, I'm kind of jealous of this one. I've been trying to build one of these now for a while, and it is a DeFi aggregator, basically, and portfolio tracker, Metrics Finance. And he was gracious enough to give me an elite account the other day, and I've been messing with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I got a half chub messing with it. So it's as far as DeFi goes, tools, analytics, data is key to your success. And tools like this is what is going to help you be successful. So with that, let's jump into it. So Jake, I want to know how you got started, like, kind of where you went, what's your background? Where did you go to school? What is it that, kind of got you interested into crypto and thereby DeFi?
Yeah, so my journey is actually pretty interesting. It's not like, oh, I just started throwing money into this or anything like that. It was a long but slow journey. So like long story short, back when I was like, probably 11 or 12, started making like YouTube videos in middle school, right? Just as a kid, funny skits with my friends. Maybe had like 500 subscribers or something. Definitely got bullied for the videos, not gonna lie, but that's middle school at the end of the day.
What can you
Um,
do?
yeah, exactly. And then eventually I started doing gaming. I got big into Fortnite at the time when that came out, and I started live streaming like Fortnite. I started doing that on Twitch, and then eventually I brought that over to YouTube, just making videos about what I was doing in Fortnite and like skits in Fortnite. And that's about when I was 14, going like right into high school. And then later on in high school, like sophomore year, I think it was, I started making videos on meme coins and crypto and DeFi. So this is like a while back. This is like first meme coin cycle. I got
Yeah.
into Doge pretty early, like at half a penny or something like that. Um, and then also I got into Shiba Inu. I round tripped that one. I did have some gains on it still when I exited, but still.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Shiba Inu, this is what got me into like DeFi. It's the funniest story. I specifically started posting YouTube content around Shiba Inu because at the time, one of my friends that does YouTube is telling me, hey, like, there's this new niche. You can post videos. It's super easy to get views. And then, you can, like, it's in the finance. So you get paid more per views than if you just make Fortnite videos. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm like,
Mhm.
why don't I try it? I made a new channel, popped up, 100,000 views like within my first like 3 videos. I'm like, oh, okay. you know? Um, and then, yeah, eventually I went down the rabbit hole. I started investing into SHIB, investing into all these other meme coins while covering them on the channel. And then I started to realize like, oh, I don't really like this stuff. Dove into Ponzi schemes and DeFi, which would be what we considered node projects at the time, where get 1%, 2%, sometimes 5% a day. Got rugged on a lot of those, made a little bit of money on some of them, and then eventually like, got tired of doing that and dove into liquidity pools and DeFi, and that brings us to like 2021, 2022 roughly. So yeah.
Nice. And so you have a background. If you know, I hope you don't mind me putting this out there, but you have a background in business administration. That's what you went to college for, correct?
Yeah, I'm still working on that one. I'm doing like very very slow. I think I take one class a semester, but it's in progress.
Well, I mean, it seems like that. I mean, you know, you're doing well without it. You know, I mean, as far as you know, your luminary assets, you know, company. Can you give us a breakdown of kind of the composition of that and kind of where you're at, how that started, and just how it's going so far?
Yeah, so like Luminary Assets was initially just like my, and it is different name at the time, just branded under my name. But it was essentially my legal entity for just like all the stuff I was doing for tax purposes. But then we
Mm,
launched Builder Wealth, and Builder Wealth I would say is like the first like actual business that like was sustainable that I launched. Compared to like the immense amount of basically side hustles is what I would consider them that I was doing when I was like anywhere from 11 to like 18, 19 years old, um, and then shortly after that, like, that was when I was thinking, okay, I need to change the LLC name to like Builder Wealth. But then we launched Metrics Finance. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, we have goals to launch other things in the future. So it made a lot more sense to just kind of brand something, have a company that kind of is everything that we do and it's a trusted source. So when you go to Luminary Assets, we all have the same mission, which is, onboard more retail investors to DeFi, help people with their strategy, help them grow and scale their portfolios. But we just do it in different ways. Like on Builder Wealth, we do it through the coaching and education. Metrics Finance, we do it through software and tooling.
nice. So, I mean, I'm kind of curious about metrics finance. It's what inspired you to build it out. I mean, just I guess that's the kind of the go-to question.
Yeah, so that one is also a funny story. A lot of these things they're not purposeful when we got into it. Like we didn't expect it to be what it is today, but like, you see product market fit, you see demand, and that's where you build it, right? So Metrics Finance was initially called Builder Metrics because when we essentially created it, it was supposed to just be like a side project. It was supposed to be like a little tool that um, anybody can use, just a way to kind of get back to the community. And basically, we forked this tool called Uniswap.fish. It was open source at the time.
Hmm.
And basically, it was a funded by Uniswap Foundation tool, but it was no longer being updated because they were no longer being funded. They were funded once, they did the implementation, right? They did
Hmm.
their deliverables, and then it became outdated. It no longer, we had Base Network popping up with, billions of dollars of TVL flowing, and thing didn't even support Base. So we just grabbed the open source code. A lot of people think I'm a developer. I am, far from a developer. I love software. I love tooling because it makes my life easier, and I love like
Yeah.
popping open a clean dashboard and be like, oh yes, this is exactly what I need. But yeah, so like we added Base, we added Avalanche, we added a couple of other networks, and then we launched it. And people were like, oh, this is cool. Like, great job on doing this. Like, you should do this. So then we started implementing like a couple little minor things. Again, part time work. I was just working with a developer that I knew in the space, and then we brought on Esteban. I want to say so. We launched it probably August or September, maybe it was October of 2022. Yeah, 2022. And then we brought on Esteban. Was it 2022? Man, I don't even know. I'll have to think back. But yeah, we brought in Esteban like in January, I believe. And it was a great time working with him basically because he was able to completely build the tool from scratch and make it what it is today. So
Hmm.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm definitely not a software developer either. It's I think I got my head hit too many times. I'm not that techie. So, yeah, I mean, me personally, I've been using AI tools to try to tool something up, and then recently got a guy that is familiar with Solidity and a couple of other programming languages, and he's actually tomorrow giving me an update on where we're at.
There you
But
go.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it basically, I'm just wanting to do like a free portfolio tracker for our community, just because you have something that's great here. But it's there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of capital, and so
Yeah.
and that's kind of what my channel's about. Is it's really for very base entry level people into DeFi. And then of course, as they mature and their knowledge improves, and they figure out the basics, then I'm always mentioning your channel and Crypto Labs Research and DeFi Dojo, and people that are much more intelligent on DeFi than me.
Yeah.
So I kind of see myself as like the 101, and then you guys are the advanced courses. So
Yeah. At the end of the day, somebody has to do it. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because this is a great industry, and in my opinion, like for what like I kind of teach and liquidity pools and all this stuff, I feel like, and I'll say this like openly, I feel like there's a barrier to entry around like $10,000. So like somebody has to help people build their capital up there. And I will openly say like I'm not a big guy in airdrops. Like I've got a couple airdrops, but I don't go out and
yeah,
farm those airdrops, and I don't know the strategies that people use. Like that's not my cup of tea. My cup of
it's
tea
not
is
mine
like,
either.
okay,
That's why I got Jeff.
okay, there you go.
Jeff is my co-host on Saturdays and Mondays, and he's the airdrop guy.
Yeah.
I'm the DeFi guy. He's the airdrop guy, but it's a nice pairing because he often gets exposure to super early projects
Mm-hmm.
that haven't launched a token yet. They're still in their test phase, doing their test nets and things like that. And so we'll do deep dives on projects that haven't gotten popular yet, and a
Yeah.
lot of DeFi projects. And so like we just did one on Keychain, and it's a DeFi play that is doing some really cool stuff, and potentially in competition with Ripple.
Oh,
So they've made some really good progress when it comes to cross-border payments.
mhm.
So it eliminates the need for a bridge asset like XRP. So it just super, super cool project. But, I mean, Ripple does have the first mover advantage, and, partnerships and things like that. But
Yeah.
again, it's just like what KTA, Aerodrome, what else? Mamo, Plume. There's a bunch of them that he turned me on to very early, and
Nice.
so our community's been doing really well. Just people even that are hodling, those assets, and not even DeFiing. So
Yeah. Well, like the thing that people run into, I feel like with lower amounts of capital, when you're specifically talking about what we do, and this is after like our clients kind of have the ramp up period. They're spending about 3 to 5 hours per week managing their portfolio. Their
yeah,
rebounds maybe once a week, sometimes once every other week. I'm more on the every other week side of things. I like to be more passive with things, and no, I won't call it passive income anymore. You know what I mean? And that's and nothing's passive income at the end of the day. Passive income is just buzzword. But yeah, I mean, it's like when you have a capital level of like say $10,000 plus, I feel like the amount of time compared to the amount of money that you're actually able to extract makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you are making somewhat equivalent, maybe a little bit less compared to your kind of standard profession, your job, your business, whatever it may be. Whereas, when you get to a point where maybe you're deploying $5,000, but then your job is making X amount more per hour, like it would almost make more sense to see if you could pick up more hours at your job, take that money and build your DeFi portfolio, or start a side hustle and make more money from that aspect, put that in
mhm.
the DeFi portfolio, or spend more hours in your business. And that's where your returns become more
Well,
exponential and you
why
can
not
pour
do
out.
both?
Yeah, that's true. But then you don't sleep like me.
No, I mean, because I mean, I'm retired, so I have my retirement that comes in, and then I
Yeah.
kind of do this as a small business. and then and I'm always doing a contract work and things like that. So to me, I would rather spend 3 hours a night. Even if I had a full time job, I'd rather spend 3 hours a night. Working on my small business being DeFi
Yeah.
than sitting on the couch watching TV.
Of course.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like having multiple irons in the fire. And I always advertise that like a small DeFi business is like a regular business, but you don't have employees, you don't have brick and mortar, you don't have inventory, you don't have a lot of that overhead.
Hmm.
So if you can, and if you build out your portfolio properly, and you can probably speak more intelligently on this, but if you build it out, I call it the foundation. And so I usually tell people when you're starting out, start out with staking and lending because you still get full price appreciation, and you can start to understand DeFi and platforms and wallets and how all that stuff works. And then when you want to lever up your risk to earn more yield, you can start looking into full range pools. And then as you understand how the assets get bought and sold within the pool, then you can start getting into ranged pools and kind of crawl, walk, run. Kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
slowly enter in because, and which leads me to my next question: what is the biggest mistakes that you see with your community, with people that are new to crypto and new to DeFi? When they first get in.
I got you. I have a long list of these ones, that's for sure. 'Cause I made them all,
Yeah.
and I can teach them now. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the crawl, walk, run kind of process. We kind of flip it on its head though. So what we
Okay.
do is we dive into very broad range blue chip liquidity pools first,
Mhm.
concentrated too. So it's
Oh,
like
okay.
it is a little bit of like jumping into the deep end, but it's also like you're taking and also we don't dive in with full amounts of capital. So if you got like 100 grand, maybe your first deployment is like 5 grand, something that
Okay.
you lose 20% on. Yeah, it's going to sting, but it's not going to kill you at the end of the day, and you
Gotcha.
can definitely make it back. Um, but broad range blue chip liquidity pools, so you get familiar with what's actually going to make you the most money, like
Mhm.
the concentrated liquidity pools. And then we go into, okay, let's tighten up these ranges a little bit in the blue chip pools. Now let's go into like some more blue chip altcoins, maybe with the broad ranges. Okay, now let's tighten the ranges there. Now let's go into some more like maybe 50 $100 million assets with broad ranges and stuff like that, then tighten the ranges from there. So we kind of, as we go,
Mhm.
adjust the risk level to be a little bit higher with the actual assets themselves. But each time we adjust the risk level, we're going in with broader ranges first, and then
Mhm.
adjusting the risk level with actual ranges as we go as well.
Gotcha.
And then after you're kind of comfortable with that, we inject in lending a bar, and we inject into staking, stuff like that, and everything. And then what we're working on now is like a little boot camp for what do you call it? Getting started in DeFi, just like opening up your first position, because we want to
Mhm.
start to teach people like, hey, like take like $1,000 or something and literally just go throw it in these things, like learn the functionality of actually like deploying, right? Like whatever, and then start kind of our actual roadmap, which we call a DeFi formula. But yeah, beginner mistakes, right? So number one, and this is the biggest one, it's easy for us to all want to do this. Never invest everything in liquidity pools. Like it makes sense, right? We want to just throw all of our money into what's earning us the most yield.
Mhm.
But there will be that day, and it happens to me. Like even after 4 years in the industry,
It
and
happens to all of us.
finding my
You
strategy,
see you
the
see
day
a
where
juicy APR and you're like, "Let's do this."
exactly. And then, it might have a 97% correlation, but then all of a sudden, Ethereum's up 10%. This altcoin shoots up like 100%, and your position is up 15%. And you just
Yeah.
missed out on 85% gains, right?
Mhm.
Never put in all LPs. Divergence loss is always going to be there. There's no magic guru stuff that we can do to like get rid of it. We can
Yep.
use it to our advantage, right? We can mitigate it, right? We can plan things out before we invest, and we can increase our overall win rate of how much we beat divergence loss and how much in earnings we retain. But you will have positions where they will get beat by divergence loss, and that's investing at the end of the day. You will have properties where the tenants will be super annoying, right? You'll have properties where the tenants don't message you for 5 years and they're like, "Hey, I'm ready to move out." You know what I mean? Like, um, So same thing goes with LPs. You're gonna have your winners, you're gonna have your losers. Don't invest in all into LPs. That's rule number one. So we
All
usually
right.
split between like LPs, hodls, lending, and maybe we'll borrow against our assets, put some in, other aspects of the portfolio and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
diversify your risk, basically.
Mhm. Exactly. So rule number two, and you'll find it funny, but a lot of people don't do this. Analyze assets thoroughly. So
I'm
basically,
always preaching that. Look at
oh
the
yeah, 100%.
fundamentals that you believe in the project. Because if you end up going out the bottom end, are you comfortable hodling that asset
Yeah.
potentially long term?
Yeah, exactly. You got to be willing to go to zero in this industry, because you get rugged just like that, and then it's like you don't want to be in a situation where you have to sleep under a bridge. Like you want to be in a healthy financial situation still.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the reason why we preach this is because nobody does it. Like I have had so many people come to me and they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What's your process for finding assets right now?" Because they have like a bunch of like random stuff like in their portfolio. Like, well, I go on YouTube and I'm like, "Oh gosh,
Right,
I'm not
right.
going to
I
end
go on
well."
TikTok and whatever's going viral, I invest in that.
Exactly. This guy told me one time, and he's a client now, so I hate to throw shade, but he's like, and again, like we've learned, we've improved, but he's like, yeah, so usually I find overlap with what people are talking about online, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, whatever. And when there's overlap, usually I take that as like, oh, it's probably a good project because multiple people are talking about it. So I'll go
Yeah.
invest into it. And I'm like, did you ever think of the fact that maybe, just maybe, projects can pay these people and they could pay multiple people at once?
Right, right.
And it's like, oh. And then, you really dive into the numbers, and I'll be transparent on this. Like, um, there's been times like where and I've done promotions in the past, but I make it a mission when we do promotions to like be still completely honest. Like I've done promotions, I literally will go on and just frankly like talk crap about a specific project. Like, yeah, so like this is cool and all, and this is great. But like all this other stuff makes absolutely no sense. Like, so would I be comfortable putting a bunch of my portfolio in here? Absolutely not. Will I put a couple thousand here? Of course, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it out. This will
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
higher risk sector. But like these people that pay for promotions will pay thousands of dollars per video just to get in front of your audience. And when you really think about it, it's like, okay, like how much money can I truly drive to this project? Maybe 150 grand, which is a lot of money, but like you have to think about their model. Like, how do they make, if they're paying you, say, 2 grand, how do they make 2 grand back off of 150 grand? Because if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
depositing in like a vault
Return
or
on
liquidity
investment,
pool,
ROI.
yeah, well, if you're depositing in a vault into a liquidity pool, that's not their money. That's yours to eventually get out, right? So like
Yeah.
they have to make more than 2 grand in revenue to make a profit there. Like, what's going on? Like, are they just going to sell the tokens on your audience? Like, what are they doing? So like that's what I've realized over time. Like, and that's why I'm like heavily against doing that. So our process, we have something called VRM. Um, it's called value, risk, and market. First thing we do, where does the token get its value from? We look at revenue generating assets. So like stuff that actually generates revenue, because 2 years from now, man, like a lot of these tokens that we see on the leaderboard will be gone because they do not generate revenue, or that revenue never touches the people that hold their tokens, right? It never touches the
I
holders.
I love non-custodial, platforms. I've
Yeah.
I've really started, digging in and trying to find those because for a lot of these reasons you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, love Uniswap. Don't get me wrong; their token model sucks. Like, it sucks so bad. Like, they have segregated their platform into Uniswap Labs and Uniswap Foundation.
Mhm.
Uniswap Labs is uniswap.org. They own the website. The website that I imagine tens of millions of people go to on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
or maybe millions of people. But and then they attach a fee whenever you trade on uniswap.org. You don't get that fee when you trade through the smart contracts, but that fee goes to Uniswap Labs. It doesn't go to Uniswap token holders. So they
Yeah.
swept the rug out from under the token holders basically and said, hey, like you're holding, Uni token in hopes that you can potentially get a share of like fees on the platform or something. It's literally the only reason why people hold Uni token, because they hope that eventually they will get
Yeah.
that speculating. And ultimately, it's been, they've tried to pass like governance proposals and stuff like that. It's never passed. And
I I'm a
Uniswap
I'm a huge
Labs,
fan of base.
what's that?
Base DeFi is like that's where my focus is.
Okay.
Like our
Yeah.
Arcadia, we just did a deep dive on Arcadia, and they are non-custodial, and if you stake AAA, then you get a portion of the revenue from the platform. Aerodrome, same thing.
Yeah.
What else? A bunch of them, but yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right on track. Like, um, I was going on a little bit of a tangent with Uniswap. Like, again, they
No, no,
basically
go ahead.
they
That's
said
good,
like
good info.
no, like you're not getting any of this revenue. Like it's only going to Uniswap Labs because hey, we own the domain uniswap.org, and it really just showed uni holders like oh, like they could do whatever they want. Like governance actually isn't a thing here, which is
Yeah.
fine. At the end of the day, like it's still a great platform. I still trust Uniswap over most platforms, but I'm not an
Yeah.
investor in Uniswap, and I won't be an investor in Uniswap. I'm
Mm.
just a liquidity provider on Uniswap, you could call it. But yeah, regarding some other rules, like this is something that my client success manager at Builder Wealth said. His name's Cons. Great guy. He's like a powerhouse, the engine behind us. But like he basically said, if you know all the outcomes before you invest, there will be no surprises. Which essentially, what that's relating to is like when we dive into liquidity pools, we do an in-depth, thorough analysis on all the different outcome situations. So we'll set our range and everything like that. We'll select our pool, which already needs to be correlated, needs to, ideally be assets that we already want to hold in our wallet. But then what we do is we check those assets on a daily time frame, on a weekly time frame, and on a monthly time frame, and we pin them up against each other, and we say, okay, here's how correlated they truly are. And we say, okay, well, on maybe August 1st, Ethereum, and again, just using fictional numbers, Ethereum went up like 5%, and say the other asset is Render went up like 15%. We plug that into Metrics Finance, and that shows us exactly how much divergence loss we're going to have, because we're analyzing that situation to see how it's going to affect our position.
So this is what Jake is talking about, and this is his platform, crypto.correlation. This is a correlation matrix, and so basically you look at two assets. You can add assets up here, and it's very similar to what I'm always showing on DeFi Llama, where you just basically the two assets, you find them, come together, and if it's a one, it's a perfect correlation. The lower the number, the less correlated the assets are. Correlation means that those assets move together. If they're not correlated, it means that they tend to move opposite each other. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
so like the way I always like to picture it is like say ETH goes up 10%. In order to
Mhm.
have a correlation of 1, which is the highest you can have, to ETH, the other asset would have to go up 10%. In order to have a lowest correlation of -1, the other asset would have to go down 10%, while Ethereum's going up 10%. That's kind of like your scale, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Perfect.
Um, and yeah, like while we're on the topic of crypto correlation, this is something that we essentially bought out a couple months ago for the infrastructure. Had like probably 1,000 monthly users at the time. Not trying to build anything revolutionary here, because truly none of it is revolutionary, if I'm being honest. What we're just trying to do is build and that's one of the things, right? It's only top 250 right now, so we're going to increase that to
Oh, okay.
500, and then yeah. But eventually, like what we're trying to do is just build a spot where you can like have a bunch of like little tools and stuff like that in one place. So there's like sites called like calculator.net, I think, which are all these like different compound interest calculators, APR calculators,
Yeah.
stuff that you would see in TradFi, and all these different types of calculators. We want to build that, but for DeFi, on crypto correlation. So going beyond just the correlation, but having all of our tools, all of our calculators here in one place. Also just giving you a general pulse on the market and what's
Mhm.
happening. So again, nothing crazy revolutionary, just more of like a time saver and a way to like have everything in one place. Will we put a pro plan on it? Like I'm 98% sure that we won't. I don't know why we would.
Yeah.
We might have some like lock stuff for like our legacy members, because we do have some like calculators that we use internally that are way more advanced, that we're probably just going to merge on here. But the rest of that stuff like will be available for completely free. Like, yeah. And then Metrics Finance, I would consider that one revolutionary, because I truly haven't seen anything do it in the level of detail that we do. So,
No, I definitely agree with you there, and I've done a ton of digging, just research into, like I said, I was trying to build my own just portfolio tracker, nothing to the extent of Metrics Finance, but I was definitely wanting something that, because it's so disconjointed right now. Like
Yeah.
for me personally, I'm not an emotional person. I'm a very disciplined person. 22 years in the military. I'm very, very numbers, facts, logic. And so I have to make decisions. I need to do it based off of those things.
Yeah.
So I have a spreadsheet, very, very complex one, but and I share it with the community for free. But there is a lot of manual processes because I have to go in there and I have to, I have all my different. Here, I'll just show it real quick. I'm very transparent with my investing.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see, just because, you know, I figure if I'm not willing to show my wins and my losses, then
People
what am
shouldn't.
I doing here?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, you log onto the site and you see those last 3 digits of your wallet address in any site. It's like it's so easy to slip those up. It's like, okay, somebody's now like they know you're on Aerodrome and they know the
Yeah.
last 3 digits of your wallet. Like they could easily find your full wallet address just by scanning the
Yeah.
bar. So it's
It's
like
like I
people are
don't
gonna
understand
find
why people are so
it.
secretive. It's I'm just
Yeah,
like, hey, this is my portfolio,
yeah,
and but so yeah, this is most of my positions right now,
yeah,
and I have to hand jam these in the blue shaded areas on the different tabs. Are they have the formulas and they auto populate. Like the price of the assets just pulls from a URL, and
yeah,
then based off of my inputs, it comes out with certain data. And then this one, I have to go to each of these, VFAT and Arcadia and Royco and Ambient and Beefy, and and I have to, okay, what is the current value, and hand jam it in. What is the current APR? Hand jam it in, and then it tells me how much I'm making daily, monthly, all that. So yeah, I mean, I have dreamed of having something like this, to where I can just go to it all in one place, have all of my positions, and be able to see my P&L, because that's something that I don't have. I have to figure that out manually. Something that figures out my divergence loss or impermanent loss, versus hodl, all those things that you have on metrics.
yeah,
And so, because I mean, ultimately, yeah, you can, your deposit could, value could be going down, but if you're earning enough APR, your token count, because if you're harvesting that, not compounding it, potentially that offsets your impermanent loss.
yeah,
So that you could be making a profit, but if you're emotional and you look and you're like, oh, I had 5 grand in there, now I have 4,500, I'm losing money, but you're making it an amazing APR and you've made $800, you're actually up $300.
yeah. Exactly.
So it's that's kind of like a lot of the mistakes that a lot of people that I see initially, especially when they're chasing high APRs, is they're chasing meme coins, and the meme coin is dipping, and they're only looking at what they're earning. They're not paying attention to what they're losing.
Yeah,
So I see that a lot, and but yeah, I think that's what led me to start, kind of teaching and, preaching that, building out that foundation that I talked about with lending, staking, and full range pools, is because then all the yield that they earn, it's a very safe place, very risk off place to be. And then
yeah,
the yield that they earn, they can do what you were talking about with, range positions and things like that. And it's OPM, other people's money.
yeah,
Then they're not touching their principal, because most of the people that are in our community, they don't have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
of
They're
course.
dealing with smaller amounts, and so it's a more sustainable way to grow. Um, and that I've found in my limited my limited experience, because I've only been doing DeFi since October of last year. Yeah, I've been in crypto. It's funny you mentioned Sheeb, as that was my entry
You're entry
into
too?
crypto.
Nice.
Was at the end of the last bull run. My buddy told me it was 2011. I had just gotten back off of my last deployment, and I was at a barbecue, and one of my tech buddies was like, "Hey, there's this Bitcoin thing. Let's both throw $100 in it. See what it does." And to my demise, I laughed at him. And I was
Yeah.
like, dude, that sounds like something dorks in their mom's basement, like Pokemon cards or something like that.
Buying this digital money,
Yeah.
yeah.
And fast forward that $100, it's like 500 grand, I think last time I talked to him.
Oh, man.
And I'm kicking myself. And so, I saw a social media post and I was like, oh, Sheeb, it's a crypto. I'll throw $100 in this, see what happens.
Mhm.
And it was right before it pumped and it started pumping and I started DCing into it as it pumped.
Nice.
And right when I tried to get out is when Coinbase crashed. And
Oh,
I'm like, what in the fuck is going on right now? And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm trying to get out. And by the time I got out, I think I like 2 or 3x'd, but it was enough that it piqued my interest into crypto. And so I've spent the whole bear market basically I was stacking ISO tokens. So, XRP, Algo, XLM, all the usual suspects. And then long story short, because of some of Ripple's moves with RLUSD and stuff like that, where I felt like it affected the use case or the potential upside of XRP, understanding how it's used. I actually got out after it initially pumped, so
Yeah.
made a good profit, and then
There you
that's when I got into DeFi
go.
and
Nice.
started really going heavy into DeFi.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. Like with the tracking, it's hard. At the end of the day, we will never track every dex, but what we've asked ourselves is how can we provide like infrastructure for people to do this? So like if you head over to the track page on metrics, um, we just implemented this new thing, and you'll have to throw out a wallet address, or actually you already have one. So
Yeah.
we hit add position over on the right hand side. It's like
Oh, here you go.
down. Yeah, right there. Yeah. You're able to essentially add in a custom position here. So as I mentioned, like we'll never be able to fully support all the dexes because there's just so many popping up.
Yeah.
But this essentially allows you to do what you do in spreadsheets through metrics. And it's in beta right now. It's still, we have some UX things to kind of fix, but that's how we get feedback. That's how we implement that feedback. So to any of you that are watching, or even you in general, you have any feedback, if something's confusing to you, if you don't know if we have something, just click that little icon in the bottom right. It's like the little icon that has a chat thing. And it's not live really. I mean, sometimes we'll get back to you super quick, but we don't have like agents or anything. But my entire team gets messages there. So that way we could be like, okay, yeah, we should implement this, or oh, yeah, that is confusing. Like, let's change this up. It essentially allows you to just type in CoinGecko IDs. We provide you the same granular level of data that you'd get. Here, you might want to flip, you might want to put USDC on the top
Okay.
and then MAM on the bottom. And you'll have to put the CoinGecko IDs. So if I were to grab those for you real quick, Mamo is going to be just Mamo, it looks like. And
Yeah.
then I think USDC is going to be USD dash coin, but let me just double check. Yeah, it's USD dash coin.
All right.
There you go. And then, yeah, you can throw in your range, whatever. Should be good.
All right.
And then basically just log like position checks, like, hey, I currently have this much of each asset in there. And we're working on pulling from like some actual APIs to see if we can do the checks automatically. But yeah, I mean, this is in beta. Eventually we plan to like introduce lending a bar in here, showing actual PL there. We'll eventually add the way to add like hodls there, like your buys, your sells for hodls. But
Uh,
with hodls, we do have to do it based on buys, sells. We can't do that automatic because like if we're tracking Ethereum, let's just say, it's like you might have bought like it's a 10 ETH like a year ago or something like that, and you've done your trades, you paid your gas fees. Like, how is that classified? Do you
yeah.
classify it this way? Somebody else does it this way. So, like, we just plan to add that type of infrastructure there, so you could track it all in one place. Most of it can be automatic, and I do want to be like transparent. The reason why we can do this is because we have a subscription model as opposed to having like where we charge you based on transaction, and you execute your transactions through a platform like Crystal is an amazing platform. Like, I trust them over anyone. We have contacts with their team. Like, our
Yeah. Yeah.
team are constantly in the background, somewhat collaborating. Like, we'll give them some ideas, we'll give them some feedback, right? They'll do the same for us. They'll help us with
Mm,
implementations and stuff. It's a
that's
great
cool.
relationship that we have with them. Um,
I love collaborations like that.
Exactly.
I feel like there's way too much tribalism in crypto.
There is, but it's
Yeah,
like the thing is,
a bunch of people in our community love Crystal. Like a
yeah.
random Pavo, is always doing research on there because of the analytics.
Yeah. And like me being transparent, I think we have a better product for like pre-research for getting into things beforehand.
Mhm.
And also for the level of data that we provide. We provide so much more data. But who is our target market? Our target market is people that, are running more kind of long-term liquidity pools that
Yeah,
want to generate, yield, want to accumulate more assets, right? More advanced users. Crystal, I feel like targets a more kind of basic, beginner market.
yeah,
And again, that kind of falls into their product functionality, providing tools, and those tools, they charge you a fee for like swapping. Again, a completely fine model. We're going to introduce it pretty soon. Not full on automations, but like rebalancing positions and whatnot.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But the reason why, since we're on a subscription model, we can build stuff like this that essentially, like, we know we would never be able to capture fees like if we like on custom positions. But since we're on subscription and we have revenue from that, we can kind of allocate resources there because that's part of the subscription that's going to make us revenue in the long term. So again, I think it's a cool model that we have compared to a lot of DeFi companies. A lot of DeFi companies like, how can I charge fees to users, whatnot? We're just standard SaaS,
yeah.
that like, okay, now we can make an awesome user experience and stuff. Um, but yeah, again, it's being built out. We highly recommend any feedback, throw it in. And we are going on like a little bit of a couple weeks where we just focus on supporting new protocols. So Uniswap V4 is in the works, which would be great to have on there. We just
Nice.
launched Katana for Sushi
Okay.
Swap. They're doing great over there. And then ideally, pretty soon, we're looking at Pancake Swap on the Solana network. And then after that, some Hyper EVM stuff. We have Shadow Exchange from Sonic, I think, in the works. A lot of cool things coming soon. So, yeah. And that's because recently we've noticed a lot of these models are just like, they're V3 forks. They're, maybe what do you call it? QuickSwap uses something called Algebra. They're
Mhm.
Algebra liquidity protocols. So it's like it's a repeatable process that we have. Like, yes, it's not just copy and paste, but kind of like copy and paste. Just change up some variables. Um, so yeah, we've been so focused on the product. Now it's time to like put some focus on support and exchanges, get caught up with the trends and everything. So
No, and I'll definitely, and again, I really appreciate the elite membership on this. Just I really want to dive deep into this, just to tell my community about it.
100%.
But yeah, exchange. I mean, there's Uniswap, QuickSwap, Pancake Swap, Sushi Swap, Orca, Radium, Velodrome, and Aerodrome.
Yeah,
And as far as networks, you got Ethereum, Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, Base, BNB, Avalanche, and Celo. So yeah, it's definitely would love to see more base stuff.
yeah,
being a base maxi like myself, but I mean I love if it's a good protocol on a good chain. I'm all about it. I just
yeah,
that's my big thing. And like you said, there's just so many new protocols, dexes. I mean, everything's evolving so fast that it's impossible to keep up with it all. So you almost have to like choose, a chain or
yeah,
a couple of platforms or protocols that you just specialize in. That
100%.
because otherwise, I mean, a little bit about a lot of things, but you're not, fully knowledgeable about what it is that that you got. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
I can definitely respect that you're instead of just saying, hey, let's put as much as we can on here. It's like let's do this in a very thoughtful way
yeah.
where we're adding things as we see value.
And right now we're full on concentrated liquidity, so our eventual goal is, and when I say eventual, I mean actually this kind of year, we want to move to going off of just concentrated liquidity to now supporting like V1s, V2s, V4s, right? We want to support all of it, right? So that way you pull up, our track page, and this is primarily for the track page. You don't need like simulate as much for like V2 pools. We'll still have it there, just a different variation. But like the ability to pull up the track page and see all your like full range positions there, all your auto compound positions there, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then eventually lending and borrowing will come on and stuff. So we start
Nice.
with concentrated liquidity. We move into all types of liquidity. Then we focus on the lending part of the product and the borrowing part of the product. And then we focus on something else. So we're just kind of, our goal is to take over these specific industries one by one, as opposed to building something like, where we just like focus on everything at once, then it's like we don't get as granular data. And one thing I also want to put out there is we are, kind of running a model in the back end, and this is the model that we ran with Quickstop Radium, where essentially we work on a grant. So initially, when we worked on grants with these projects, we just kind of get a one-time fee, and it would push the project implementation very top of our timeline. We drop everything we're doing. We focus on implementing that exchange. And then also we do a bunch of marketing with the exchange and stuff like that. And it's a great way for exchanges to get kind of exposure, because we do have like 11,000 monthly users. And we just measured the other day, we have like a huge amount of TVL over here, I should say. It's above 7 figures, we'll say that. But yeah, it's essentially in the 8 figures for Solana in specific. And essentially, the new process that we're kind of running is the same thing, bump implementation, top of our roadmap. Also have, what do you call it? The marketing, but then we're going to implement a period where when these exchanges come on for like a period of 90 days with this new one that we're working with, everything elite for that exchange will be free. So like for a period of 90 days, all the exchange's users are getting access to our elite. Basically, they're essentially the exchange is fronting the subscription for their users in essence, and they're also paying for implementation. And then that allows us to build more great DeFi products, bring them to the public without having to focus on putting them behind a paywall. So that way we can pay operating expenses. Because man, I tell you, we do not make money off metrics. We lose money on metrics, and we're not VC funded, so we don't have people breathing down our necks, which is great. But software is a pretty interesting industry to say the least, because you have a lot of like API calls and charges, like, to all these different external data sources, even if you have your own data infrastructure. And yeah, it gets expensive, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yeah, no, I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm on Starlink, so every once in a while a tree gets in the way of a satellite.
You're good. But yeah, as I was just saying, software is super expensive to run. And like, as you ramp up the users, and this was the thing, and it's unfortunate, but this is why we did have to start putting some stuff behind the paywall.
Mhm.
That was already there. We had like 20,000 monthly free users, and our CoinGecko bill was nearing like $5,000 or not
Yeah.
CoinGecko, all of our APIs like combined. Because even though we pull directly like from the blockchain, we have to do that through subgraphs. And then subgraphs, like we
I'm
have our own
familiar.
data infrastructure, like we code it in. But then the
Yeah.
subgraph that we pull from, even though it's our own infrastructure, we have to pay per call.
Mhm.
You have to pull in external prices. You have to pull in,
Mhm.
you have to do RPC nodes to be able to pull this stuff. It's like, it's a, it's
So
not a fun
so
game.
so those of you out there that might not understand what he was talking about, and the only reason I do is because, like I said, I'm trying to build a little app. But basically, all of the data that is on, like, say, metrics, the APRs, the way that the different pools, where the pools are at, just all of that data that populates, that you have to pay for that. So there's a point to where you can only have it free for so long, because as you're pulling more and more people are pulling data, it gets more and more expensive for the person that's hosting the app. So from what basically from what it sounds like, it's just it got to a point to where, well, and I understand that, because our channel here, this costs us money to me and Jeff. It costs us money to do this, because we don't accept any advertising. We don't charge for anything. We don't take super chats. We don't monetize YouTube. This is all free. We just love what we do, and it allows us to have a lot of flexibility to really give honest reviews of the projects we talk about, and gives people confidence that what we're saying is what we honestly believe and not because somebody paid us.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, there's only so long that you can, offer something for free to where it's, costing you money, to where it's like, all right, this is to a point, like you said, $5,000 a month. It's like, am I willing to pay, increasingly larger amounts of money out of pocket
Yeah.
to, to continue to offer this for free?
Yeah. Not to mention our dev team. We now have 3 full-time developers. Like we've been able to manage like our and also reduce our API charges by like caching more data. Like if we're pulling something in like
Oh,
2, 3
yeah.
times over, like and you know what I mean, we can just save that. But developers, they're expensive, especially if you get good ones. Like Esteban's a huge asset to the team. Metrics wouldn't be where what do you call it? It's at without him. And then also he manages now 2 developers under him. So we have like resources to actually focus on implementing new exchanges. And it's like you're like, oh, we can run with like 3 forever, but then it's like, oh, there's like 100 things on a roadmap. Like we've got so many suggestions from people. And like I have to sit there and say, yeah, that's a great suggestion. Like I'm gonna put that on a roadmap, just knowing it's like at like we've already had it there for 6 months.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because like we've thought every angle out, and I will say there are some unique ones, but like it's all just like it's gonna take, a couple days. And when you have like 100 things that take a couple days, it's like you're looking at a year now. So yeah. But yeah, again, lots of stuff coming in the pipeline for that. But
Well, I mean, I'm really excited to see it, and genuinely,
yeah.
like I said, I mean, I've learned a ton from you, and probably as far as the technical aspects of DeFi, and I'll be honest, there's multiple times that I've had to rewatch your episodes because just the level that you're at is so different than I was at when I was first coming in. And that was a hurdle for me because, like I said, I'm older. I'm 51. I've been hit in the head a lot. It's it's so sometimes it's harder for me to retain knowledge.
Mhm.
I'll put it that way. So but yeah, it's well worth it. Anybody that's not following Jake, I highly suggest that you find him on YouTube. Again, it's just at Jake Call, JAKECALL, and he has great videos. He's great at breaking things down. If for some reason you have any issues, there's a really good AI that I've started using called Sesame. And if there's anything that you don't understand, like a terminology or something like that, you can actually talk to the AI.
Nice.
It's actually my co-host for the show. Whenever I'm just by myself, and if I run into something when I'm doing a deep dive, I can just read it, like that part of the white paper, and I'll ask it to break it down as simply as possible. And it does a great job. I mean, I would not suggest using it for numbers or calculations. It does a terrible job. But definitions and breaking down complex topics into simple, easy to digest, um, you know, uh, verbiage it does a really great job.
Yeah. AI is only as great as you make it. We use AI for, asset analysis. We have
Mhm.
some prompts for like range analysis that we use. One of the things I also want to speak on is ranges. Like I just want to make this known. We don't really use technical analysis with the ranges, which sounds relatively silly, but
No,
nobody's
no, please dive into that. I mean, we have all the time that you need. I mean, we can
I
go over. I just
definitely
want to be respectful
for
of your
today.
time.
Yeah, but like, with range analysis, like I oftentimes see a lot of people and even people that come to us like, oh, I'm not good with technical analysis. I'm like, what are you using technical analysis for? They're like, finding the ranges. I'm like, what are you finding the range for? And they're like, rat Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ethereum, Arrow, right? Just some examples.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
well, technical analysis only works when other people use technical analysis, and that's like that kind of the whole point behind it. Kind of provide some guidelines for trading. Uh, but if you're on Ethereum, Arrow, let's just say nobody's really trading Arrow on an Ethereum chart. They're more trading Arrow on a US dollar chart. So the individual charts, is where technical analysis is going to matter a lot more than when you're looking at, something like Ethereum to Arrow. So that's also why crypto to crypto pools are easier to get into, because if you go in with correlated ones, it's very easy to stay in range. But you just want to look at the trend. Where's the trend going? Which asset is doing better historically? Which asset is continuing to do better right now? And set your ranges from there, and that's going to help you kind of get in. But yeah, technical analysis is completely irrelevant when it comes down to crypto pairs. Hot take I've heard, but yeah.
I mean, really, the only TA I call it Drew over at Blockchain Basement calls it hillbilly TA. Really, the only thing that I do is maybe look for lines of support and resistance. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's really it.
Yeah, that's same thing for me when it comes down to crypto to stable pools. But crypto to crypto pools, I'm all trend analysis. So I guess you consider it TA trend analysis, but more of just seeing, okay, where is the price going over the past couple weeks? Okay, chart is going down, and if in a crypto pool, that just means one asset is doing better than the other if the price is going down. So I'm like, I just want to make sure that I can capture that, right? So I'll adjust my range accordingly to ensure that I can capture that trend. But it's not really TA. It's not really plotting out, fair value
No,
or any of that
no.
stuff.
You're not looking for Head and Shoulders and
Yeah, I've seen people do that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? We
yeah,
don't really
they're making it way too complicated.
so we have a rocket ship right here, and that means this asset is about to go to the moon. That's what the TA is telling us.
No, but yeah. So, I mean, that's really. I mean, kind of in closing. Well, you know what? Go ahead and give me just whatever you want to talk about. Your closing thoughts. Again, I mean, we can go as long as you want. I just want to be respectful of your time.
Of course,
But
yeah, yeah.
go ahead and give us your closing thoughts, or whatever you want to close out with.
Yeah, so one thing I want to close out with is something that we call our DeFi flywheel strategy. Something that we talked about probably on the channel since January, I think, is when we introduced it. And again, we've been doing this in the background for years, but we didn't really have a name for it. We didn't really have a framework for it. We didn't really have a set in stone process. But what we consider a DeFi flywheel, which maybe you guys have heard the term in specific protocols, like the aerodrome flywheel that you execute on, or so and so flywheel. Our DeFi flywheel is meant for your portfolio. And it's basically the process of letting your portfolio grow on its own without having to throw in more capital. And again, you're completely fine to throw in more capital. That expedites things. Don't get me wrong. But use the yield to generate more yield. Use the yield and see appreciation on the yield. And
OPM, other people's money.
exactly. Or some people call it house money too.
Yep.
So one of the ways that we think about this is we don't just say we have Ethereum to Arrow position. We don't just take the money from Ethereum to Arrow and just park it back in Ethereum to Arrow. We use it in the most strategic way possible. So we can do this in so many ways, and it really depends on risk tolerance and what you have in your portfolio. But if you have a very low risk position and you started with very low risk positions and you are wanting to explore more higher risk things to generate more income, you use the yield from your low risk positions and you park that in mid risk or higher risk positions, right? So that way, other people's money, you're taking more risk. Or you borrow against, again, be safe with your borrows, but you borrow against your blue chip positions and start to experiment with that kind of money. The other instance is where you have high risk positions that you opened up and you want to do the opposite. You want to start to lower your risk as your capital grows over time.
Yeah.
Take that money, park it into low risk positions. And we also use this as a reallocation technique because essentially, if you have, say, 50% in LPs, 30% in lending, and then 20% in HODLs, right? And then all of a sudden, now your lending is worth 40%, not 30%. Your LPs are 45, and then your HODLs are I think 15 would be the math. Then what we do is we use the yield to reallocate. So we're not going to be allocating to lending in that instance when we're bringing in yield. We're going to be allocating to liquidity pools, and we're also going to be allocating to HODLs until our portfolio is back in our ideal balance. And again, that could be in, high risk, low risk, whatever you want to do. But that's kind of the process that we use there for flywheeling our growth. And the goal is to just consistently produce more income over time, lower your risk over time as well, is what we teach. Some people like to kind of heighten their risk over time. That's completely fine. It just depends on where you start. But yeah, I mean, that's what we call our DeFi flywheel mechanism. And we have on crypto-correlation.com, we have a DeFi flywheel calculator that allows you to see potential growth behind that and just the effect of compounding. So if you go over to the tool section, yeah, it's going to be that top one. And then you can select between your initial capital allocation between yield bearing and non-yield bearing. And then also, I would say when you're looking at yield bearing, you probably just want to consider like liquidity pools because like you're lending and borrowing that's going to do very, very marginal returns. And your income allocation, like consider yield bearing, non-yield bearing. Like, is that income going to be used to essentially kind of phase out liquidity pools because those might have high divergence loss or whatever? Or is it going to be used to park more money in liquidity pools to produce more income? And again, you can go very, very granular with this. Like,
So the income is the yield that you're earning off of your positions?
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So like what this is essentially saying is, so you'll have like an input of initial capital and portfolio APR. That portfolio APR is strictly the yield bearing section though. So 10 grand, if we have, in that instance, it looks like a 60% allocation to yield bearing, that would mean that 6K is generating 100% APR. Another 4K is generating nothing. Now,
Okay.
in this instance, you have 100% towards yield bearing as well in the income. So all of that 6K is going to be parked back into stuff that earns more yield, that earns that 100% APR. That's the way that we kind of position it. But the way to think about this is like over time, in periods of high volatility, like if I think the market's heating up right now, we're going to see a bunch of volatility coming up. My yield, I want to put that in hodls. I want to put that in lending. Maybe I want to do some borrows and do some leverage. Like that's
Full
what I want
price
to do.
appreciation.
Yeah, because like my liquidity pools are going to start to have more volatility. They're going to start to essentially go down sorry, they're going to start to underperform the market when that volatility starts to come in. Whereas my lending, my hodls, that's what's going to perform the best. So in periods where the market is essentially heating up, we're allocating to kind of the full, not full range, but like full exposure positions, we call them. And then in periods of chop, like that yield is going back into liquidity pools. And over time, it kind of goes into that ratio. So yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I mean this is kind of, I guess, will be my closing thoughts, but that's what I've been telling our community is that, right now is we're at how your DeFi portfolio is allocated. It has a lot to do with where we are in the cycle. And like you just said, right now we're at a point where potentially, if alt season hits and, the prices start to pump, you don't necessarily want to be in liquidity pools where you're only getting a portion of the price appreciation due to, the assets, how the assets are performing.
Yep.
So moving into lending, staking, hodling, if there isn't good places, for those two that I mentioned. And if you feel the need, a full range position maybe, because I have a couple of those right now, but as the markets start to take off, I'm definitely going to be, moving out into those, lending and staking because I want full price appreciation. Because, like you said, very, very rarely, especially when things start going parabolic, are you going to earn enough APR to not incur impermanent loss. So,
Yeah, 100%. Like it's, the way that we look at it is like risk to reward, right? What's your risk diving into liquidity pools and permanent divergence loss? What's your reward diving into liquidity pools? Fees. So when you compare, liquidity pools to HODL, those are the two instances that you're looking at, right? Do the fees outweigh the divergence loss? Does the reward outweigh the risk that you take on? Or kind of the negative, just the positive outweigh the negative. But yeah, I mean, we definitely got to get your what do you call it, full range on like Aerodrome and stuff like that, supported on Metrics Finance, because I know that I think that you have a couple full range positions over there, and we don't track them quite yet. And also, like Aerodrome has pretty good returns for like for full range positions because they provide those incentives. For like Uniswap, it makes no sense to put V2 pools on there because it's like very, very low returns and it's super easy to calculate on your own. But like I could see that with Aerodrome, Velodrome, some of these other platforms. So I'll see if that's like an easy implementation or what we can do. It would be easier than concentrated liquidity. I just don't know if it'd be a full build out. But yeah.
No, I appreciate that, man. So yeah, no, it's if anybody that's watching, if you have any questions, any DeFi questions, or any questions for Jake, again, find him on socials, Jake Call on YouTube, or follow him on X, Jake A Call, and then also our Discord. We have a great community of people in our Discord. The down below in the description, you can find the links there, and we're always happy to help. There's always somebody in there that's willing to give you some answers if you're having issues, technical issues with different protocols. There's somebody in there that's dealt with it before, and they can walk you through it. Be very careful with clicking on anything. Do not, if somebody's trying to private message you or something like that. There's a lot of scammers in Discord. Be very, very careful of that. Good rule of thumb is never, ever, ever click on links. I
Never.
mean, never. It's just, if you're in crypto, even meetings. Me and Jake were very careful with this. We used a Google Meet to meet first before I sent him a link for this show,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of exploits out there where people can click, they'll invite you to a Zoom meeting, you click on it, and while you're talking to them, they're draining your wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I've seen some crazy ones like the other day. I think it was Monday. Um, I almost got burned in a sense, and not almost, but like basically there was, I think it was CoinDesk. First of all, it wasn't actually CoinDesk, right?
yeah,
They had they had like a separate X or something that was like CoinDesk podcast. And then you know how you can do like that association where you pay X amount per month, and then that kind of logo pops up on the thing. Well, yeah, so CoinDesk podcast was an official account. There's another Twitter account claiming to be a part of CoinDesk podcast, and basically they have active tweets for months and months and months on end. They're actually retweeting stuff, they're responding to these CoinDesk things, they have engagement. Looks legit. So like me being busy, and I just quickly look at it, I'm like, okay, looks like a legit account. They send me a calendar invite 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out, right? And like,
yeah,
hey, like here's what the outline is going to be. We're going to do like a podcast or whatever. They create a Telegram group. They're like, yeah, these other two people are going to be on the podcast. So there's like 4 people in this group, in which all of them are supposed to be on the podcast. And it's
yeah,
like they're texting from all these accounts. Looks super legit in Telegram. And it's
yeah,
also 2 weeks out. They're not trying to get me immediately. Right.
yeah.
And then the day of the podcast comes, they come and they send me this, like, I forget what service it was. It was something, and it was a popular Korean service, basically. Um,
North
and
Korean.
no, I don't know exactly, but I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out this out, and I searched it up, and I'm like, okay, this is legit. And one of them, so I think let's just call it K Talk, right?
Yeah.
And they basically had K Talk, and then they had K Video or something. So their domain that they sent me was K Video, and
Mm.
I'm like, well, I can't find anything about K Video online, but let me download the K Talk website because that's official, that's legit. I did my research
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that, went through the process, and I download K Talk, and I couldn't join the what do you call it? The thing through the K Talk. So I sent it to them. They're like, "Oh, you need to download the K Video." I'm like, So I checked
yeah.
the domain, the Who is
Uh,
registered last month, and also registered by a different party than the K Talk that was registered in 2013.
yeah.
So, and then I called them out on it, and they blocked me instantly. So I'm like, oh my gosh, but
You
the
know,
level
yeah.
of detail they went into, have multiple accounts, to
Yeah.
wait 2 weeks to kind of make it to send me a whole outline of the podcast.
It
Like,
was it was they did the long game on you, man.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, time came, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to download this random app, but at the same
No.
time, it's like, what I mean? Like, I did go for the Twitter thing already, so they got me a little bit there, but it's like I could easily see why people that are just getting into this industry get scammed, get rugged, get exploited, whatever, because these people are so advanced and so what do you call it? I guess just thorough with what they do, and it's crazy. You almost have to think like, imagine they put that actual effort into doing something legit. Imagine where that would be, what I mean? Because like we just what do you call it? had one of our clients that not one of our clients got scammed, but his friend basically was talking to somebody on Zoom, as you mentioned, and boom, $70,000 drained. Horrible, horrible experience to hear from. So
No, it's I mean, I've seen a couple of influencers talking about it. One guy lost, I think it was a couple hundred grand.
Jeez.
That I forget his name, the British guy, huge following. But yeah, he came on and he was just distraught. Another guy, I think it was Jason Casper, got hit not too long ago.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a big TA guy, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's has a huge following. But yeah, I mean, no one's above it.
Yep.
It sounds like that. I mean, you had to do some real digging to sniff that one out. So
Yeah.
hats off to you for that.
ChatGPT actually helped a lot with that, I will say. So if you guys are confused about something, throw on like a web search in ChatGPT. It's like $20 a month to get access to that, I think. Throw on web search and then just like feed it the information. Don't if ChatGPT says yes, don't just like, oh, let me go throw my money here, or let me go click on these links, right? But like go and also do your own research, right? Check the
Mhm.
domain information. Um,
Trust but verify.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But if ChatGPT says no, on the other hand, just listen. Just listen.
Yeah, just better
Yeah,
to be
don't
safe than
don't give
sorry.
anything else. Yeah,
Well, I appreciate your time, brother, and yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again. I mean, I know that I still have a lot to learn about DeFi, and I definitely would love to collaborate again.
100%. Yeah, I'm completely open to it. We should do it on my channel too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, if you want to stick around for a second, we'll sign off, but yeah,
Yep.
we'll chat a little bit if you got a minute.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm done.
All right.